"Ma'am, don't give me the money. Just take the jacket." Ethan Walker's voice was quiet enough that Claire almost missed it beneath the cold November rain tapping against the awning of the Grand Mercer Hotel. She looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes, one hand pressed against her mouth, as though she were trying to keep the rest of her grief from escaping. Around them, downtown Chicago glittered with expensive restaurants, glowing office towers, and black cars sliding through wet streets. People hurried past beneath umbrellas, collars raised against the 38-degree chill. Nobody stopped. Ethan did. He had been walking toward the train station after finishing a 12-hour repair shift, thinking about nothing more complicated than getting home before his 8-year-old daughter Lily fell asleep. His work boots were damp. His hands were rough from years of fixing things other people barely noticed until they broke. The brown jacket on his shoulders was old but warm, and when he saw the woman sitting alone beneath the hotel awning, trembling despite the shelter above her, he slowed. Claire Whitmore had spent most of her adult life surrounded by people who watched her every expression for opportunity. Tonight, however, Ethan saw none of that. He saw a woman crying. Nothing more. Nothing less. "I'm fine," Claire whispered. "You don't look fine." I said, "I'm fine." "Okay." Ethan gave a small nod. "You can still be cold and fine." For the first time that evening, something almost resembling a smile touched her face. Ethan removed his jacket and held it toward her. Beneath it, he wore a faded gray work shirt with Walker Repair stitched above the pocket. Claire stared at the jacket instead of taking it. "You'll freeze. Train station's 3 blocks away. And after that, then I go home. You always give your clothes to strangers?" Ethan glanced toward the rain. Only the ones pretending they aren't shivering. Claire finally accepted it. The fabric carried the faint scent of motor oil, laundry soap, and cold night air. It was nothing like the tailored coats hanging inside her penthouse closet, yet somehow it felt warmer than any of them. She reached into her purse and pulled out several bills. Ethan immediately shook his head. "No, please. Keep it. You don't understand." Her voice cracked slightly. "I can afford it." Ethan studied her for a moment, not suspiciously, not greedily, simply with the calm patience of a man who understood that sometimes pride was the last shelter a hurting person had left. "Then buy yourself coffee tomorrow and give somebody else a break when they need one." Claire lowered the money. A horn sounded at the curb. A sleek black sedan had stopped beneath the hotel lights, but Ethan barely noticed it. His phone buzzed. Lily's name appeared on the screen beside a photograph of a gap-toothed grin. "That your wife?" Claire asked. "My daughter." His expression softened instantly. "Just us these days." He answered, promising Lily he was coming home, then stepped backward into the rain. Claire tightened his jacket around her shoulders. "Wait, what's your name?" "Ethan." "Ethan what?" But he was already walking away, one hand raised in farewell. Claire stood beneath the golden lights watching this ordinary single father disappear toward the station without knowing that the crying woman wearing his worn jacket was Claire Whitmore, billionaire CEO of Whitmore Global, or that by morning, one of the most powerful women in America would have only one quest. By the time Ethan Walker reached the elevated train platform. The rain had soaked through his gray work shirt and turned the November wind into something sharp enough to make him regret giving away his jacket for exactly 3 seconds. Then he remembered Claire's trembling hands, and the regret disappeared. He arrived at his apartment 40 minutes later, carrying a paper bag with 2 grilled cheese sandwiches from the diner downstairs. Lily was waiting on the couch beneath a faded blue blanket, fighting sleep with the determination only an 8-year-old could manage. "Dad, where's your jacket?" she asked immediately. Ethan stopped. "Hello to you too. You always wear that jacket. A woman needed it." Lily narrowed her eyes. "More than you." Ethan set the sandwiches on the kitchen counter. "Tonight she did." That answer seemed sufficient. Lily followed him into the kitchen while he warmed tomato soup, and soon the little apartment smelled of butter, bread, and something that felt remarkably close to peace. Ethan never told her the woman had been crying. Some sadness belonged to the person carrying it. Instead, he asked about school, listened to a detailed explanation of a science project involving lima beans, and pretended not to notice when Lily slipped the larger half of her sandwich onto his plate. Across the city, Claire sat silently in the back of the black sedan, still wearing Ethan's jacket. Her driver, Daniel, glanced into the mirror. "Ms. Whitmore, your coat is in the trunk." "I know. Would you like it?" "No." 2 words into the conversation. Claire looked through the rain-streaked window as Chicago moved past in ribbons of white and red light. Ethan had refused her money without hesitation. That bothered her in a way she could not explain, because almost everyone in her world wanted something. Access, influence, a promotion, a contract. Even kindness often arrived carrying an invisible invoice. Ethan had asked for nothing. At her penthouse, Claire walked past marble floors, original paintings, and windows overlooking half the city before stopping beside the kitchen island. She placed several $100s on the counter, the same bills Ethan had refused, then looked down at his jacket. Walker Repair was faintly embroidered on the shirt beneath it. She remembered. Ethan, single father, train station 3 blocks away. Small details, but Claire had built an empire by noticing details other people dismissed. Her phone rang. "The board is waiting for confirmation on tomorrow's acquisition meeting," her assistant said. Claire closed her eyes. 12 hours earlier, that acquisition had seemed like the most important thing in her life. Tonight it sounded strangely distant. Move the morning briefing to 9. Of course. Anything else? Claire hesitated. "Yes. I need you to find someone." The next morning, Ethan was beneath the hood of a delivery van when his supervisor called from the office. "Walker, somebody's asking about you." Ethan wiped his hands on a shop rag. "Customer. Don't know." Corporate-sounding woman. Asked whether an Ethan Walker works here. Ethan frowned. He had no debts anyone should be chasing and no reason for anyone corporate to know his name. He returned to the van and dismissed it. At Whitmore Global, 40 floors above downtown Chicago, Claire stood before a wall of glass while her chief of security placed a thin folder on her desk. "Ethan Walker," he said, 39, single father, daughter named Lily, maintenance technician at Harrison Fleet Services. Claire touched the worn jacket folded beside her laptop. "Anything else?" "Nothing remarkable." Claire looked at him. "That depends on what you consider remarkable." Her gaze dropped to the folder, then to the jacket a billionaire CEO had carried into one of America's most powerful boardrooms without telling a single person where it came from. "No limousine," she said quietly. "No security detail. Tomorrow, I'm returning this myself." Saturday morning arrived pale and cold over Chicago, and Ethan Walker was already awake before the alarm sounded at 6:15. The apartment radiator clicked unevenly beneath the window while he stood in the kitchen counting bills beside a chipped coffee mug. Rent was due in 6 days. Lily's school field trip needed $42 by Monday. His truck had developed a warning light he had been pretending not to notice. Ethan counted the money again, moved $20 from the grocery envelope into the school envelope, and quietly accepted that dinner would require creativity later in the week. "You know, I can skip the field trip," Lily said behind him. Ethan turned. She stood barefoot in pajamas, her hair pointing in 3 directions. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough to know you're doing money math." Ethan slid the envelopes into a drawer. "I'm doing dad math." Completely different subject. "Does dad math mean you don't buy things for yourself?" "Usually." Lily climbed onto a chair. "Like jackets." Ethan laughed softly. "Especially jackets." He made pancakes from the last of a boxed mix, carefully giving Lily the roundest one, while keeping the crooked pieces for himself. Their apartment was small, the furniture mismatched, the kitchen table scarred from years of use. But photographs covered the refrigerator like little declarations that hardship had not been allowed to take everything. Lily at kindergarten graduation. Lily holding her first lost tooth. Ethan beside his late wife, Rachel, years before illness had turned their plans into memories. After breakfast, Ethan repaired the loose wheel on Lily's desk chair instead of replacing it. "Why do you always fix everything?" she asked. "Because broken doesn't mean useless." Lily considered that with the seriousness of a judge. Was the crying lady broken? Ethan's screwdriver stopped. "I never said she was crying." "You didn't have to." Ethan smiled despite himself. His daughter noticed too much. People aren't chairs, kiddo. Sometimes they just need somebody to sit beside them until they remember they can stand again. Did you sit beside her? For a minute. Did you get her name? Ethan hesitated. Claire. Lily smiled. Pretty name. 3 miles away, Claire Whitmore sat alone in the back seat of an ordinary rideshare sedan, Ethan's folded jacket resting across her knees. She had dismissed her driver that morning and left her security team behind, something that had produced several concerned phone calls before she finally turned her phone silent. She wore jeans, a navy sweater, and a simple wool coat. No assistant, no company car, nothing bearing the Whitmore name. Ethan had shown kindness to Claire, not to the woman whose signature could move hundreds of millions of dollars, and she wanted one more hour before those two identities became impossible to separate. The rideshare stopped outside Ethan's brick apartment building shortly after 9. Claire paid, stepped onto the sidewalk, and looked up at the aging 3-story structure. She suddenly felt more nervous than she had before any board meeting in years. Upstairs, Lily was coloring at the kitchen table when someone knocked. Ethan opened the door and froze. Claire stood there holding his brown jacket. You found me. I hope that's okay. Depends. You selling something? Just returning something? Lily appeared beside him. Her eyes moved immediately to the jacket. You're Claire. Claire blinked. And you must be Lily. Dad said you needed help. Ethan gave his daughter a look. Lily. Claire smiled, genuinely this time. Your dad was right. She extended the jacket, but Lily noticed something first. A careful line of fresh stitching along the torn inside pocket. You fixed it, Lily said. Claire looked down. It seemed important. Ethan took the jacket slowly. You didn't have to come all this way. Neither did you. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Lily opened the door wider. We have hot chocolate. Claire glanced at Ethan. He shrugged. Apparently you've been invited. Claire stepped inside, leaving the billionaire outside with the city, at least for a little longer, but as Ethan hung her coat beside the door, her silenced phone lit inside its pocket with a message from her board chairman. Claire, Whitmore Global cannot begin without ITSO. Claire sat at Ethan's small kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a mug of hot chocolate, listening as Lily explained why marshmallows should legally count as breakfast. They're basically tiny clouds, Lily said. That is not science, Ethan replied from the stove. It could be. Your teacher would be devastated. Claire laughed, and the sound surprised even her. It had been months since laughter had arrived without calculation, without cameras nearby, without someone wondering whether the CEO approved of the joke. Here, nobody cared what she approved of. Lily cared whether she liked cinnamon. Ethan cared whether the old radiator was keeping the apartment warm enough. The simplicity felt almost unfamiliar. Ethan placed a plate of toast on the table. Sorry, it's nothing fancy. It's perfect, Claire answered too quickly, then lowered her eyes toward the mug. Ethan noticed, but didn't press. That was becoming the strangest thing about him. He never seemed interested in pulling information from people before they were ready to give it. So what do you do, Claire? Lily asked. Claire paused. I work for a company downtown. Ethan leaned against the counter. That sounded mysterious. Mostly meetings. Definitely mysterious. Lots of spreadsheets. Now it sounds dangerous. Lily giggled. Claire smiled, but beneath it came a small ache. She could have told them everything right there. She could have said her company occupied 60 floors of one of Chicago's most recognizable towers. She could have said thousands of employees answered to executives who ultimately answered to her. She could have explained that financial magazines estimated her fortune in billions. Instead, she said, work has been complicated lately. Ethan nodded. That why you were crying? The room softened. Claire looked at Lily, then back at him. Partly. Ethan waited. My father started the company, Claire continued. After he died, everyone expected me to become him. Same instincts. Same toughness. Same certainty. She traced one finger around the rim of the mug. Eventually people stop asking whether you're okay. They just ask whether you've made the decision. Ethan pulled out the chair opposite her. Sounds lonely. Claire looked up. There was no pity in his face. Only understanding. It can be. Dad gets lonely too, Lily announced. Kiddo, what? You do. Ethan rubbed his forehead. Claire tried not to smile. She's observant. She's dangerous. I heard that. The apartment filled with laughter again, and for a few minutes Claire forgot the phone in her coat pocket. Then it vibrated once, twice, 3 times. Ethan glanced toward the hallway. You need to get that? Probably. Important. Claire looked at him. People think it is. Ethan smiled faintly. Those aren't always the same thing. The words landed harder than he intended. Claire rose and retrieved her phone. 11 missed calls. Her board chairman. Her chief financial officer. Her assistant. A message warned that reporters were already asking why Whitmore Global CEO had unexpectedly postponed a major acquisition briefing. Claire immediately turned the screen against her palm. Everything okay? Ethan asked. Just work. Lily pointed toward the repaired jacket hanging beside the door. Are you coming back again? Claire hesitated. In boardrooms, she could answer questions worth billions without blinking. This one stopped her. If your dad doesn't mind. Ethan lifted one shoulder. Hot chocolate's cheap. Dad. Okay. You're welcome anytime. Claire's expression softened. She said goodbye to Lily and stepped into the cold Chicago morning. At the curb, a black sedan was waiting despite her instructions. Daniel stood beside it, holding the rear door open. Claire stopped. Ethan had followed her downstairs because the front entrance sometimes jammed. He looked from Claire to the polished sedan, then to Daniel's formal coat. Your rideshare upgraded fast, Ethan said. Claire searched for an answer, but Daniel spoke first. Ms. Whitmore, the board is assembled. They're waiting for you at headquarters. Ethan's smile faded slightly. Claire met his eyes. The secret had not broken open yet, but for the first time, Ethan understood that the woman he had sheltered from the cold belonged to a world far larger than she had admitted. The black sedan remained at the curb between them, polished enough to reflect the gray Chicago sky, while Ethan stood with one hand on the stubborn apartment door, and Claire searched for words she had postponed too long. Ms. Whitmore, Ethan repeated. Claire glanced at Daniel, who immediately understood his mistake. I should go, she said. Sounds like it. There was no accusation in Ethan's voice, which somehow made the moment harder. Claire stepped toward the sedan, then stopped. Ethan, I wasn't trying to lie to you. You said you worked for a company downtown. Edo. Apparently they send a car when you're late. A faint smile crossed his face. That's better than Harrison Fleet Services. Claire almost laughed, but Ethan had already opened the building door. Have a good meeting, Claire. She watched him disappear inside before Daniel closed the car door. 20 minutes later, Claire entered Whitmore Global through a private underground entrance. The transformation was immediate. Assistants approached with tablets. Executives waited beside elevators. Her chief financial officer began discussing acquisition numbers before she had removed her coat. Not now, Claire said. The hallway went quiet. On the 48th floor, 12 board members were seated around a walnut conference table overlooking the city. Claire took her place at the head. Charts appeared across the wall. Numbers moved into millions, then billions. Yet while everyone debated leverage, projections, and shareholder expectations, Claire kept thinking about Ethan's kitchen table and Lily declaring marshmallows to be tiny clouds. Claire, the chairman asked, we need your decision. She looked around the room. These people knew her net worth, her voting power, her schedule, her reputation. None of them knew she had spent that morning drinking hot chocolate from a chipped mug. Delay the vote 48 hours, she said. Several faces tightened. That could cost us. Then we'll determine whether the deal deserves to survive 48 hours. Her voice remained calm. The discussion ended. Across town, Ethan spent the afternoon replacing brake assemblies and trying not to wonder about Claire. Ms. Whitmore. Board. Headquarters. The clues fit together into something he could not yet see. On Monday, she appeared again, this time at a neighborhood coffee shop near Harrison Fleet Services. No sedan waited outside. No assistant followed her. Ethan entered after work and found her sitting near the window with 2 coffees. This becoming a habit? He asked. I'm hoping so. Should I be worried? Probably. He sat opposite her. Claire slid 1 cup across the table. Black. 1 sugar. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You remembered. I noticed details. So, I'm learning. They talked for nearly an hour. Ethan told her about Lily's obsession with astronomy, about Rachel's death 4 years earlier, and about how grief had taught him that surviving and living were not always the same thing. Claire told him about her father, about expectations, and about waking some mornings surrounded by everything money could buy while feeling strangely absent from her own life. She carefully avoided numbers, titles, ownership. Ethan did not ask. That became their rhythm over the next 2 weeks. Coffee after work, a Saturday walk beside Lake Michigan with Lily. Pizza from a neighborhood place where Claire laughed when Lily covered her slice in too much Parmesan. Two worlds moved closer without either demanding entrance into the other. Claire began leaving her phone unanswered for entire stretches of time. Ethan began smiling before she even arrived. But secrets have weight, and Claire could feel hers growing heavier. One evening, Lily asked, "Claire, are you rich?" Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. "Lily." Claire looked at the girl. "Why would you ask that?" "Your shoes." Claire glanced downward. "What about them?" "My friend's mom watches fashion videos. She has shoes like those, except she said they cost more than our refrigerator." Ethan covered his face. Claire laughed, but her phone lit on the table before she could answer. A news alert filled the screen beneath a photograph of Claire in a tailored suit standing before the Whitmore Global logo. Ethan only caught a glimpse before she turned it over. "Everything okay?" he asked. Claire held his gaze. "Not yet." The following morning at Harrison Fleet Services, Ethan's supervisor handed him a work order for emergency mechanical maintenance at a downtown corporate tower. Ethan read the address twice. At the top of the page, beneath the service instructions, were 2 words he had heard before but never connected. Whitmore Global. Ethan read the work order one more time before folding it into his shirt pocket. Whitmore Global. The name followed him all morning, through the 20-minute drive downtown, through security at the underground loading entrance, and into a building where polished stone floors reflected light like still water. Harrison Fleet Services had been called to inspect a mechanical problem affecting several executive transport vehicles stored beneath the tower. It should have been routine. Ethan preferred routine. Machines did not hide who they were. A worn belt squealed. A weak battery struggled. A loose connection told the truth eventually. People were more complicated. By 11:30, Ethan had identified the problem, replaced a damaged control module, and signed the maintenance sheet. He could have left through the service entrance without seeing anything beyond concrete walls and fluorescent lights. Instead, a facilities coordinator asked him to carry the completed paperwork upstairs because the executive transportation manager needed the original signature. 47th floor, she said. Main reception can direct you. Ethan hesitated. Executive floor? Close enough. The elevator rose silently. Ethan looked down at his work boots, faded jeans, and navy Harrison Fleet Services shirt. Grease-marked one cuff despite his attempt to clean it. When the doors opened, he stepped into another world. Glass walls, white stone, quiet voices. Men and women in tailored suits moved with practiced urgency beneath a silver Whitmore Global emblem stretching across the reception wall. Ethan stopped for half a second. Claire's face flashed through his mind. The black sedan. Daniel calling her Ms. Whitmore. The photograph on her phone. Before Ethan could connect the final pieces, a sharply dressed manager approached. "Can I help you?" "Transportation paperwork. I was told to bring it upstairs." The man looked at Ethan's shirt, then his boots. "Deliveries use the service level. Facilities sent me here. Then facilities made a mistake." Ethan held out the folder. "I just need a signature." The manager did not take it. 2 employees nearby glanced over. "You can leave it downstairs." They specifically asked for the original. "And I'm specifically asking you not to stand in executive reception dressed like you just came out from under a truck." The words carried farther than necessary. Ethan looked down at his sleeve. Actually, it was a Lincoln Navigator. One employee hid a smile. The manager did not. "This isn't a garage." No argument there. "Then perhaps you understand appearances matter here." Ethan became still. He had known men like this before. People who confuse status with character and expensive surroundings with personal worth. Years ago, he might have defended himself. Life had taught him something quieter. Dignity did not require an audience. "Who needs a signature?" Ethan asked. "Mr. Caldwell." "Then tell Mr. Caldwell his vehicle is repaired and the paperwork will be downstairs." Ethan turned toward the elevators. "Wait." The manager sounded surprised. "That's it." Ethan pressed the call button. "You wanted me gone?" Most contractors would apologize. Ethan looked back calmly. "For fixing your problem?" Silence settled between them. The elevator had not arrived yet. Then a soft chime sounded from the opposite side of the lobby. A private elevator opened. Conversations stopped almost instantly. Several executives straightened. The manager adjusted his jacket. "She's early," someone whispered. Ethan glanced toward the opening doors. First came Daniel. Wearing the same formal coat Ethan remembered from outside his apartment. Then came 3 senior executives carrying folders. Finally, Claire stepped into the lobby in a charcoal suit, composed and unmistakably in command. The woman who had drunk hot chocolate with Lily was gone. In her place stood the person everyone in that room clearly answered to. Claire saw Ethan. Her steps stopped. The manager followed her gaze and frowned. "Ms. Whitmore, I apologize. This contractor was just leaving." Ethan looked at the enormous company emblem, then at Claire, and at last understood the secret she had been carrying since the night he placed his jacket around her shoulders. But before he could speak, the manager leaned toward him and said quietly, "You're standing in front of the CEO?" Claire heard every word. Her expression changed. She walked past the executives, past Daniel, past the stunned receptionist, and stopped directly in front of Ethan. "No," she said softly. "He's standing in front of Claire." The lobby seemed to forget how to breathe. Ethan stood beside the elevator with the unsigned folder in his hand, while Claire faced him beneath the enormous silver Whitmore global emblem. Behind her, executives waited in perfect silence. The manager who had dismissed Ethan only moments earlier looked as if every confident word had suddenly become too expensive to take back. "Claire," Ethan said. "Not Ms. Whitmore. Not ma'am. Just Claire." Her eyes softened. "I should have told you." Ethan glanced around the 47th floor. "This is a little bigger than meetings and spreadsheets." A nervous laugh escaped someone near reception, but Claire never looked away from him. "Yes. The car makes more sense now. So do the missed calls. And the shoes." Claire almost smiled. Lily was right about those. Ethan nodded slowly, but there was no anger in his face. What Claire saw instead was disappointment, quiet and controlled, and that hurt more. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Claire took a breath. "Because the first night you met me, you didn't know." "Know what?" "Any of this." She gestured toward the glass walls, the executives, the city spread beneath them. "You saw a woman sitting alone in the cold. You didn't ask what I owned. You didn't ask whether helping me could help you. You gave me the warmest thing you had and walked away." Ethan lowered his eyes for a moment. "That doesn't explain the next 2 weeks." "The next 2 weeks were selfish." Claire's admission landed softly. "I want to know what it felt like to be Claire before I became Claire Whitmore to you." The manager shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Whitmore, perhaps we should continue this privately." Claire turned toward him. "What's your name?" "Richard Hale." "Mr. Hale, did you tell Ethan he didn't belong in this lobby because of his clothes?" Richard swallowed. "I was maintaining executive floor standards. I asked what you said." Silence. Ethan stepped forward. "Claire, leave it." Richard looked surprised. Claire did too. "He was rude." Ethan continued. "That doesn't mean he needs his life destroyed over 5 bad minutes." "You're defending him?" "No, I'm refusing to become him." The words settled across the marble floor. Claire stared at Ethan, and something in her expression changed from embarrassment to respect. Quiet strength. No revenge. No performance. Just dignity. "Mr. Hale," she said, "you're not being fired. But tomorrow morning you'll report to facilities and spend the day learning how many people keep this building running before executives ever arrive." Richard's face reddened. "Understood." Ethan handed him the folder. "Mr. Caldwell still needs to sign page 3. Richard accepted it with both hands. "I'll take care of it." The private elevator chimed behind Claire. A senior executive approached carefully. "Claire, the acquisition team is waiting upstairs." Press is already gathering for the announcement. Ethan looked toward the elevator. Sounds important. It is. Then go. Claire hesitated. Ethan, I don't want this to change what you think of me. He met her eyes. I don't know what I think yet. That answer was honest enough to hurt. He pressed the elevator button. Claire wanted to stop him, explain everything, tell him why that rainy night had found her crying outside the Grand Mercer. But the doors opened before courage did. Ethan stepped inside. Tell Lily I'm sorry, Claire said. For what? For letting her believe I was just Claire. Ethan looked at her across the narrowing space. Maybe that's the part you still don't understand. To her, you are. The doors closed. Claire remained motionless until Daniel approached with a tablet. There's something you should see before the press conference. On the screen was an old security photograph from the Grand Mercer, showing Claire beneath the awning, Ethan placing his jacket around her shoulders. Someone at the hotel had leaked the footage. Within minutes, the image would be everywhere. And by afternoon, America would know that an unknown working-class single father had helped billionaire CEO Claire Whitmore when he believed she was nobody at all. By noon, Ethan's phone would not stop vibrating. He ignored the first 3 calls because he was driving back to Harrison Fleet Services. He ignored the next 5 because his supervisor was standing beside a Ford Transit asking why 3 reporters had called the front office looking for him. Then Lily sent a message from school. Dad, why are you on Mrs. Bennett's phone? Ethan pulled into an empty parking space and stared at the screen. The photograph from the Grand Mercer was everywhere. Claire sat beneath the hotel awning with tears on her face, while Ethan stood beside her, placing his brown jacket around her shoulders. Headlines called him a stranger, a mechanic, a single father. Some praised him. Others speculated about why one of America's wealthiest executives had been crying alone. Ethan disliked all of it. That moment had belonged to Claire before it belonged to anyone else. 47 floors above downtown Chicago, the Whitmore Global Press Room was packed. Claire stood behind the curtain while advisors argued around her. Do not discuss the hotel. Redirect to the acquisition. We can issue a privacy statement. Claire, say nothing personal. She listened until the voices blurred together. Then she looked at Daniel. Is Ethan's name public? Not officially, but it won't stay private. And Lily? Not yet. Claire's expression hardened. Keep it that way. The press conference began at 12:30. Cameras clicked beneath white lights as Claire walked to the podium. The acquisition announcement lasted 7 minutes before the first reporter raised a hand. Ms. Whitmore, can you explain the photograph circulating online? Another voice followed. Who is the man? Then another. Why were you crying? Claire looked toward her communications director. He gave the smallest shake of his head. She ignored it. The man's name is Ethan Walker, Claire said. The room quieted. He is a single father. He works hard. And until today, he had no reason to believe anyone should know his name. A reporter leaned forward. Did he know who you were? No. Claire's answer came immediately. That is the entire point. The room became still. That evening, I was having one of the worst nights of my life. People passed me for nearly 20 minutes. Some recognized me. Some didn't. Ethan stopped. Claire paused. He gave me his jacket because I was cold. Did you offer to pay him? Yes. A few reporters began typing. He refused. The typing slowed. What did he ask for in return? Claire looked directly toward the cameras. Nothing. One word changed the atmosphere. He didn't ask where I worked. He didn't ask my last name. He didn't take a photograph. He didn't give me a business card. He simply saw someone hurting and decided her dignity mattered. In the break room at Harrison Fleet Services, Ethan watched the broadcast with 6 co-workers standing silently behind him. Claire continued. This morning, Ethan entered this building as a contractor and was treated as though his clothes determined his worth. I want every employee at Whitmore Global to understand something. Respect that depends on someone's title is not respect. It is calculation. No one in the press room moved. The man some people dismissed today gave away something he needed to a woman he believed had nothing to offer him. He showed more character under a hotel awning than many people show in rooms where billions of dollars are discussed. Ethan lowered his eyes. His supervisor whispered, You seriously had no idea? None. Claire stepped away from the podium, but a reporter called out one final question. Ms. Whitmore, what happens now between you and Ethan Walker? Claire stopped. For the first time, the billionaire CEO had no prepared answer. That, she said softly, is his choice. That evening, Ethan returned home to find Lily sitting beside the brown jacket on the couch. Claire told the whole country you're a good person, Lily said. Ethan sat beside her. Being on television doesn't make it more true. A knock sounded at the door. Ethan opened it. Claire stood alone in the hallway, without security, without cameras, holding a small sewing box in her hands. Her eyes moved toward the jacket. There's something about that coat I still haven't told you, she said. Something I put inside the pocket when I repaired it. Claire remained in the doorway until Ethan stepped aside. Come. She entered quietly, and Lily immediately moved closer to the brown jacket resting on the couch. Claire set the sewing box on the kitchen table and reached for the coat. Her fingers found the inside pocket she had repaired weeks earlier. When I stitched this, she said, I found a tear behind the lining. I put something there because I thought I might never have the courage to say it. Ethan watched as she slipped 2 fingers beneath the fabric and removed a small folded piece of paper. If that's a check, Claire, save us both some time. It isn't. She handed it to him. Ethan unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat but slightly uneven. Thank you for seeing Claire when the world only sees Whitmore. He read it twice. No amount. No offer. No promise. Just 11 words from a woman who could purchase almost anything except the moment that had caused those words to exist. Why hide this? Ethan asked. Claire looked toward Lily, then back at him. Because money has made people suspicious of everything I give. I didn't want you wondering what I was trying to buy. Ethan folded the note carefully. And what are you trying to buy? Nothing. Her voice softened. That's what you taught me. Silence filled the apartment, but it was not uncomfortable. The radiator clicked. A car passed on the wet street below. Somewhere upstairs, someone dragged a chair across the floor. Ordinary sounds. Ordinary life. Claire took a breath. I can create a position for you tomorrow. I can solve the rent, the truck, the school expenses. But if I do that because you helped me, then I turn your kindness into a transaction. Ethan said nothing. So I'm not offering you a miracle, she continued. I'm asking for a second chance to be your friend without hiding. Lily looked between them. Can she still come for hot chocolate? Ethan smiled. Apparently negotiations have begun. Claire laughed through tears. That would be enough. And for a while it was. Claire returned the next Saturday without a driver. Then the Saturday after that. She helped Lily build a model of the solar system and accidentally painted Saturn the wrong color. Ethan made pancakes. Claire burned one. Lily declared both adults hopeless. Months passed. Claire stopped measuring her life only in quarterly reports. Ethan stopped assuming every good thing eventually came with a price. When Harrison Fleet Services later competed openly for a legitimate maintenance contract with Whitmore Global, Ethan refused special treatment. Claire removed herself from the selection process. His company won anyway. That mattered to him. It mattered even more to her. Richard Hale completed his day with the facility's staff and, to everyone's surprise, asked to repeat it once every quarter with new managers. Respect had begun traveling through the building in quiet ways. Nearly a year after the rainy night outside the Grand Mercer, Ethan, Claire, and Lily walked along Lake Michigan beneath an October sky streaked gold and blue. The wind was cold enough that Lily complained dramatically and demanded hot chocolate. Claire smiled when Ethan removed the same brown jacket from his shoulders. Don't even think about it, she said. You learned. I learned to bring my own coat. She opened hers to prove it. Ethan laughed and put his jacket back on. Lily ran several yards ahead, collecting bright leaves from the sidewalk. Claire slowed beside Ethan. Do you ever think about that night? Sometimes. If you had known who I was, would you still have stopped? Ethan looked at her as though the answer had always been simple. You were cold. Claire's eyes filled, but this time the tears came with a smile. Ethan reached for her hand. No cameras watched. No board waited. No one knew or cared how much money she had. Ahead of them, Lily turned and shouted for them to hurry. Claire squeezed Ethan's hand and followed. The world had once known her as a billionaire CEO and him as an ordinary single father who gave away his jacket. But the truth was quieter than the headlines. He had not rescued a billionaire. He had simply respected a stranger. And she had not repaid him with wealth. She had returned with honesty, grace, and the courage to become part of a family where nobody needed her fortune. Sometimes the greatest miracles arrive without luxury cars, contracts, or checks. Sometimes they begin with a worn brown jacket, 11 handwritten words, and one decent man who sees a crying woman in the cold and decides that her dignity is reason enough to stop.